Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's very special Training Magazine Network webinar event, AI and Change Management, Transforming FOMO into Actionable Strategy. We have Michael Hruska with us today. He's the president and CEO of Problem Solutions, and Dr. Christina Barss, Chief Transformation Officer at Problem Solutions. We're very happy to welcome them for today's can't miss event here in Training Magazine Network. And also thank you to ELB Learning for making today's event possible. For more on them, you can click on the lower right there and it'll take you right to ELB Learning. Do stay until the end because we also have a very special AI reference page here for you and how to get more information from ELB Learning. We'll put that in chat here in a little bit here as we go through today's event. This is me. I'm Philip Rodriguez, today's webinar producer. I'm the Director of Membership Services. Our membership brochure is there for you to download, share it with everybody you know. They're welcome to join us here at Training Magazine Network for free. We also have our Membership Plus program, and ELB Learning also is an important part of that. We have over 20 additional benefits available to you if you choose to upgrade your membership in our community. And I produce for Training Magazine Network and SMM Connect. We're very happy that you're here with us today. If you need assistance, just click on the plus sign in chat and then host, and that'll get me a message in the background, and I promise to help you as soon as possible. If the help button doesn't work, which is in the lower right, try that first if you have any kind of issues today. Here's some great upcoming community events that we know that you'll want to attend. And look at that, we have so much great content that we are doing 2 webinars tomorrow, so make sure you check your webinar times. And hope to see you at these events. Register for them today at trainingmagnetwork.com/calendar and check the calendar frequently because we add to it all of the time. The training conference and expo is coming up in Orlando, Florida. I know that you want to attend. You don't want to miss out on this very special 47th annual training conference and expo because ELB Learning will be there. I'll even be there at the Training Magazine booth. So hope come by and say hello. Go to register today. Just click on your screen. And ELB Learning has a lot of breakout sessions that they're doing, and that information is in the brochure that's available in the handouts, rather, handout number 2. So download that and register today. ELB Learning also has a very special membership bonus that's for all members of Training Magazine Network. And you can have the periodic table of instructional design and 10 e-learning game tips for instructional designers, and the Amped Up Power Kit available to all members of Training Magazine Network. And then if you add, or if you have Membership Plus, which is our upgraded membership level, it adds heirloom course starters for Lectora, Storyline, and PowerPoint e-learning templates. It's a $798 value. There's a Lectora Showcase course that's a $1,399 value, and then a game board with 10 learning games, all available to you for having Membership Plus. To find out more about this, just simply click on your screen or go to trainingmagnetwork.com or even download the membership brochure. Thanks, ELB Learning, for making today's event possible. Go to elblearning.com for more information about create better learning experiences. Well, now let's get today's event started. AI and Change Management, Transforming FOMO into Actionable Strategy with Michael Hruska and Dr. Christina Barss. Dr. Barss, welcome. Welcome both to Training Magazine Network. Oh, Christina, unmute. I'm sorry, I had you mute. And Christina, you're still, yeah. Sorry, Christina, you're still muted.
There we are.
Excellent. There we go.
There you are. All right.
Dr. Barss, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate being here and to help the organization and our colleagues create psychologically safe spaces for learning and development and innovation. I like to think of myself as a problem solver and joy bringer. helping people reimagine where technology and people connect. That's where I thrive and where I hope others will. I'm often thought of as a Mary Poppins, where I bring in a bag and I pull out what tools meet people at the right time. My name is Dr. Christina Barss. I'm the Chief Transformation Officer at Problem Solutions, and you're joining us for the AI Change Management, Transforming FOMO into Actionable Strategy. Let's just go through the learning objectives. Understanding the essential role of change management in fostering an AI-ready culture, emphasizing skills development, mind shift set shifts, and continuous learning. The second is identifying key strategies. We'll be giving you actionable strategies, things that you can walk away from today and be able to apply. FOMO is very real, that fear of missing out. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to remove that and replace it with the joy of leaning in. So this is a really important way for us to think about ourselves, our colleagues, and our organizations. And I'm going to turn this over to Mike. Mike?
I have had the great pleasure as a technologist and designer of working with Christina for a bunch of years. Her background in organizational development, sustainable systems design, and my passion for technology and design and the intersection of the human space is something that I think is critical, and I think that everyone needs to think about. This isn't just about artificial intelligence in the future. It's about artificial intelligence and human intelligence. The technology is already here, as currently demonstrated, to do many game changer things for our organization. The questions come up like, what is worth doing? How will we approach this, along the way? And so, I want to introduce a little bit of a concept for you. There we go. Around what we call the augmented enterprise. So, our chief scientist, Dr. Dennis Folds, a few years ago, he and I were on a car ride together, and he said, Mike, what if there's no such thing as AI? What if it's just really good software? And I vehemently disagreed with him when he said this. But however, that's really what it is at the end of the day. It's just really good software. So if we assume that AI is this amazing software that helps us connect better as humans and helps technology connect us better as humans, we might think of that as augmenting our experience. We could augment the intelligence of an individual. We could augment the intelligence of a team, of a business unit. And if we start to augment the intelligence of us, we start to augment our enterprise. And so in the idea of the augmented enterprise, essentially we're using AI as really great software to help us learn, be more creative, be more efficient, be more effective, and also become more human, and also find a sense of workplace happiness. We ourselves embraced AI starting before GPT 3.5 came out, but over the first few months of the year, built agents that help us do our roles inside of our organization, from product development to corporate advisory to learning to HR. We have agents that really help us support ourselves in really meaningful ways. And what we discovered is that we could connect more as people along the way. And so you can create a vibrant organization. We talk a lot about the idea of collective intelligence in an organization. How do we enable knowledge flows and learning loops in an organization? i.e., where is new knowledge created and how does it get disseminated to the right people at the right time, so that not only can we learn and acquire new skills, but how can we learn together? What we've found with augmented intelligence teams is that teams are able to be more creative when supported with AI. We've found that we're able to take away or reduce the amount of annoying work in some ways and give us the opportunity to be more creative in a collaborative space together. But just because we can do something doesn't mean we necessarily should. We need to be very thoughtful and extremely deliberate about things like change. There's a lot of fear, not just the fear of missing out, but fear that AI could take my job. When the World Economic Forum says 85 million jobs will be destroyed, 97 million ones will be created. That sounds like a net win, but some of the jobs that will disappear are things like bank teller, and they could be replaced by like the idea of a fintech engineer. But what does that upskilling program look like? What does that transition look like? We're looking at a major amount of disruption here over the next 3 to 5 years. some of it coming sooner than we think. Our idea of a time horizon, I think, is radically shifted. And I think about this in terms of all technology shifts that might have happened through time. And if you look at our discovery, not invention, of electricity, we had to build things that generated it, that transmitted it, that distributed it. We had to develop standards around wall outlets, and then a whole bunch of things emerged that could plug into the wall, that could change our life, from things in manufacturing to just the even simple toaster. I think we're going to look back 2 years from now, like we look back at websites like Ask Jeeves and say, I can't believe that we thought that was awesome at that point in time. It was awesome, but I can't believe what we actually have now. And so the interesting thing about AI, and why I'll say it's kind of eating the world, is that we have the infrastructure to distribute. We already have our phone, we have our laptop, we have other computing devices. So the distribution technology is there. We don't need to run new wires. All we need is more GPUs and CPUs and NPUs in data centers, and to configure, engineering and think about change management. But the other thing that's accelerating AI, which you might think about too, is we can use AI to build AI solutions faster. We can use AI to build our practices, principles, standard operating procedures. We can use it for everything. I can tell you this: we use it for just about everything we do inside of our organization. So there's a rapid transformation, none like we've ever seen. What the .com expansion of technology will be greatly dwarfed by what we see in front of us. I think this kind of just sums it up really well. Dr. Jim Fan is an NVIDIA senior research scientist, and he was OpenAI's first intern, and he's Stanford PhD. I love this. Happy 2024. It will be epic. We're riding the vertical part of the exponential curve. And if you see this person standing here looking up at what I might call the Wonkavator in front of them, because of what we have done to build our own AI agents along the way, I feel like we're a few feet up this curve, and we're feeling the benefits of that in terms of our efficiency, effectiveness, quality, creativity, and workplace happiness along the way. But as I often say to everyone, buckle up, because the ride's going to get fun. Kai-Fu Lee of Synovation Ventures says, humans need and want to connect more with each other. It's not about replacing jobs, but it's connecting us in more humanistic ways. If you've read the book What Technology Wants from Kevin Kelly, he posits that technology is another animal kingdom, and that technology wants to do one thing: connect to us more and connect us better to each other. So we can have fear, of missing out. At the end of the day, we've got to find a way to augment the experiences for individuals, for teams, and for our enterprise itself. There are a lot of things happening. I'll say this: in the 1950s, really started to determine this idea of artificial intelligence and machine learning. We had a period of dark ages while some of our smartest scientists in the world were trying to get us to the moon and back safely. But we had decades of time where only weeks of progress happened. Now we have weeks that decades of progress happens inside those weeks. Just in 2023, we have major releases from Adobe, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and these are going to continue to expand at an exponential rate. So the question becomes, what is worth doing with all of this great technology? So what can we use it for? Well, we can totally transform learning experiences. I've worked on multiple programs of research related to adaptive learning and learning ecosystems and intelligent tutoring systems. What we're able to build now versus what we're able to build 3 years ago is radically different, and you can build it radically faster at the same time. A big area, and 9 out of 10 of the largest VC investments in the space are in elevating customer experiences. I'll suggest a book for anybody that wants to think about the future. The Age of Invisible Machines is a lovely book. It was written pre-Chat GPT 3.5. However, it posits a world. Oh, there it is. It's great. You can't go wrong. And it has concepts in there like intelligent digital workers and BTHX, better than human experience. We've all called a call center before. We know what robo stuff is, and we know what maybe a potentially clueless person is just reading off a script on the other side. What if we could have a more human experience along the way in our customer experiences? What if we could deliver better customer experiences to the customers for the organizations that we serve? There's a ton of productivity and engagement boosting opportunities related to task automation and content creation. At the end of the day, though, really, and as I said earlier about collective intelligence, we can really democratize not just the creation of new knowledge and expertise in our organization, but the accessibility to it. For our organizations themselves, there's a huge opportunity to drive growth and innovation. We've been running a ton of AI pilots the second half of last year, and we're seeing like 15, 20, 25% efficiency, but the effectiveness is where things go off the roof. If you don't spend a lot of time preparing for a sales call, the sales call is not going to go that well. If you spend a little bit of time with an AI agent and prepare very well for the sales call, you're not only are you more efficient in your preparation, you're more effective, in your output. Also, it's totally critical. Every organization has a competitive landscape. There are very few organizations that have, a true monopoly. And so you've got to consider the idea that your competitors are out there doing something and moving some needle inside of their own organization. I think it falls on us as learning professionals and those that serve people to help people in our organization learn about the power of AI. And we typically say organizations are kind of stuck. Here's this new thing, and we have all these things we're already doing. How do we get ourselves to think about what is around the corner? Einstein said we can't use the same consciousness to solve a problem that created it. So in order to do differently, we need to think differently. And as learning professionals, it's up to us to help people learn to think differently so that we can start to do differently as an organization. I'm really interested. I'm hopeful that every single person here has played with some kind of AI tools. This short URL will take you to a list of 600 plus tools from Lucas Petty, AI Daddy, great person to follow about AI advancements. But if you wouldn't mind, throw in the chat. Of course, someone's going to put ChatGPT in there. But what other things are you playing with? And if you found something that's cool, I'd love if you shared it with people. I'll give you an example, and we're going to double click on this idea a little bit later. I was giving an augmented enterprise workshop to a global manufacturer, and I had 27 executives in the room. Only 3 of them had used an AI tool before, and 3 of them had used ChatGPT, which was great because we're introducing new things to them. We level set. All of them had a silent writing exercise, which was why AI, hopeful outcomes, and metrics. How would you measure it? I spent a few years as a researcher at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and I love metrology. It's a great subject. So it's interesting because when they got into their breakout sessions, what I discovered is that 2 people that had used ChatGPT before were smiling and looking at each other, looking at their phones and very excited. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're using ChatGPT. I said, how are you using it? And they said, well, we asked you for ideas for AI in manufacturing. I said, scrap that. The answer is in you. And if you've read the book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, Kahneman talks about 2 ideas, System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is our intuition, quick improv, and System 2 is evaluative and analytical. And while things like ChatGPT are very good at System 2 thinking, so if you ask me, Mike, write a 508-word blog about the benefits of dry aging meat, I could do it. Might take me an hour and a half, but ChatGPT could do it better than me in like 4 seconds. But our System 1 thinking is our intuition. So I said, start over. Pretend that a 20-year-old intern named Sam just walked in the room. Sam's extremely eager to help you, but doesn't really know anything. Doesn't have the context to help you. So tell Sam your names, your degrees, your tenure at the company, and tell Sam your goal is to discover how AI might impact your manufacturing business. And ask Sam to do one thing. Ask you questions one at a time until you say proceed, and let those questions drive your team's thinking. We went from humans in the loop to computers in the group super fast. All 4 of the teams, from the executive to the process engineering team, rapidly developed a ton of ideas. When we came back together for the cross brief and the checkout, they had defined the future 10 years of their company for everything they would do AI-wise, potentially ever. Not only that, they said, In 1 hour over a lunch in this exercise, we did more to think about the future of this company than we have since I've been here. That's the power of an augmented intelligence team. So this idea of the augmented enterprise, covers a few different items. There's a short URL that's there for some of Dr. Barr's and my articles around the idea of augmented enterprise, considerations, excuse me, for the augmented enterprise along the way. And so a couple core things. If we want to unlock the collective intelligence of our organization, we need to think about our organization as a broad learning ecosystem. We need to think about how we're able to align putting people first, data-driven decisions, problem seeking along the way. And there are some links and some articles related to understanding and modeling and benchmarking your learning ecosystem. We need to think about ourselves as an adaptive learning organization, not an adaptive learning platform per se, but how do we sense and augment and react and respond, not just in an agile way, but in an adaptive way to the external conditions and internal conditions inside of our organizations. If we want to become an augmented enterprise, we need to leverage augmented intelligence teams. Where can we pair AI up with not just individuals, but with teams to help them with their creativity, with their productivity, and help them get unstuck along the way? If we start to do these things, we can start to move towards this idea of collective intelligence in an augmented enterprise. I could show you a ton of different math and scientific models, but I think the easiest way to think about this is you have a real org chart with real people in it. In our organization, we have about 30 different agents that we use that are highly specialized, whether that's developing a product or a proposal or HR related items. And we think about them as a virtual org chart. Those agents serve us as the humans in the real org chart as a virtual org chart. I have 13 agents I use on a daily basis to do my work. Think about problems, communication, R&D plans, and all kinds of things along the way. I love the links that some folks are putting in here too. The thinking effect. Thank you, Blake. It's very cool. That's a great link. I'm glad that you added that. But this idea of the virtual org chart is something that we should be thinking about. Well, just like bringing new employees or a new business unit into an organization, we've got to consider excuse me, what change is there. And that's really what our session is about today. So I'm a design person. I love design thinking and hopeful that you use it in your practice. And how might we questions are totally critical. So some of the how might we's that I encounter and Dr. Barr's encounter in our world in transformation consulting is how are we going to upskill people? First of all, if we want them to do stuff differently, they need to know and they need to think differently. So how are we going to build their digital literacy skills? We have a ton of things we can do in any organization, but the question is, what is worth doing? So what are the use cases that might unlock value in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, or creativity? And what's the proof of concept? What's something we could build in a day or a couple days and that we could start to test out to build a pilot and study that pilot and look at the results before we think about all the hard things related to governance and security and cybersecurity, because those things are hard and those things are also critical on the journey, because like the exponential ride there, if you just build things and they're not secure, you might get all the way up there and slide all the way back down like chutes and ladders. Another element to think about this is, how can we think about improving our own tooling inside the organization? What are the processes that are inherent in our organization, and how do we build the artifacts in a better way? We've got to help people to think about culture and people. A lot of people think AI is coming to take their job. A lot of people think that they might be replaced by automation. We need to head this off. It's part of the change management process. And then thinking about privacy and security. You've got to do that, but you've got to really think about, if we did it, what would it do? What would it look like? And how would we build augmented intelligence teams and amplify our performance along the way? So that's a little bit of background to give you the idea, maybe a little bit of a spirit to say, okay, we could use AI. We could augment our individuals, our teams, our business units. We could modify processes to build more efficiency, resiliency, a lot of things along the way. But we need to consider the most important thing, change. And with that, over to you, Dr. Barss.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Mike. We had a couple of questions as you were rapid fire, sharing all your great knowledge. One was, is AI from Stephanie D. And it says, is AI built or designed with confidentiality restrictions and limitations? How, as an organization and government, it kind of goes off my screen, so I do apologize for not getting the full question. Any suggestions? So Stephanie's challenged with working as a government agency. You
Yeah,
quick answer to that?
yeah, absolutely. So, Pennsylvania, my fine home state here, just signed a partnership agreement with OpenAI, and they're running private and secure versions of ChatGPT for 100 people, in the pilot program. OpenAI just changed their policy, and they're now working with DoD. This really comes down to a whole subject in itself, but I'll take 30 seconds or so. It really comes down to your network topology. So if you think that you're going to use a free version of ChatGPT and they're not going to use your data to improve it, you're dead wrong. Anything that's free, you're paying for it with your knowledge and your data. Even if you have the $20 a month, version, or the API layer, they still can use your data. What you ultimately need to do is have a DPA, a data protection agreement, associated with any of the providers. And so the secure instances for some of the larger enterprises that we work with, they will get a Microsoft Azure instance and then run GPT inside of that. And that's secure cloud connecting to their cloud. Other organizations are taking smaller language models and running them inside of their firewall. So this really comes down to a partnership between security, between technology, and between learning.
Thank you. And then, Mike, we had another question on how do you build your agents? I know that's a big wallop of a question, but just very quickly before we go into, I just want to make sure that people know that we are reading, we are looking for their questions, and we want to provide some interactivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we don't use the term chatbot because chatbots aren't necessarily all of that smart, right? An agent is smarter than us. An agent has skills that when we intersect our experience with an agent, we actually inherit the skills of the agent and the knowledge of the agent to accelerate our skills and our knowledge. There are a bunch of ways to do it. I'll tell you the simplest way. Take ChatGPT and build a great prompt that tells it exactly what you want it to know. So an easy example, I think that would make sense for everyone here. We use a process called MDAP, Metadata Defined Agent Personas. So tell ChatGPT, you're an instructional designer. You know Gagne, Blooms, this, that. Tell it everything you want it to know, so it loads that to the front of the context associated with it. Tell it the kinds of tasks that you might want it to do for you. Tell it that, give it some examples of context. Give it some examples for tone and behaviors that you want it to have. And don't ask it to do anything. Just ask it if it understands. So that's kind of like step one for building an agent is you're programming something to know, respond, and do what you want it to do. We call it taming the dragons along the way. So that's a much longer talk, but that's at least a beginning point for you.
And building off of that, working currently with an organization, we built an agent for designing jobs. So we're job leveling and creating their whole organization, a new department within their organization for sales and growth. And we created an agent that you would put the information in that you would require, where the agent already has all of the information about the healthcare sector, the focus of the department, any of the KPIs, metrics, et cetera, samples of job descriptions that are previous, scorecards, screening questions, et cetera, built that agent. And then we have it stepped so that we put in and say, we're looking for this particular role, and it would come back, and then we would step it and say, is this the job description you're seeking? And you can have that conversation with the agent. And then once you're happy with that, then it would create your scorecard. Once you're happy with the scorecard, then it can inform your screening questions. And it took something that would probably take 2 days of a human to create. We can complete an entire hiring packet that's equity centered in 45 minutes. That's pretty sweet, which then opens us the opportunity to have more meaningful dialogue with the hiring manager to ensure that we are hiring the best people and recruiting the best people, and therefore retaining the best people. There was another question before I go on, which is, how would you really define AI, Mike? And then we'll go into change management and change leadership.
When I define AI, I'll just go back to what Dr. Fold said. It's just really good software. In our exploration and evolution of how do we build software that connects well to humans, we typically have thought about UI, UX. Excuse me, still getting over a 3-week cough. We think about UI, UX a lot. But what we don't think about is the really human-centered definition of tasks. And we've never been able to do anything other than have algorithms and heuristics that approximate interactions. Having software that's dynamically able to help us adjust to it and it adjusts to us, where the tool shapes the operator and the operator shapes the tool, is just the next evolution in software.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to go on and start talking about change management and change leadership. So change management is a way of structuring a methodical transformation for an organization for a specific or focused event. While change leadership is, how do our leaders, the human section, how do we help guide our people create those psychologically safe spaces? Now, for this presentation today and dealing with fear of missing out, we're going to apply Drucker's model of leading self, leading teams, and leading organizations. So leading self is, how are you going through the change of AI, and what is your fear of missing out? While in leading teams, those are your colleagues or the people around you. How are those people dealing with the change of AI, and what actionable strategy can we help you move forward? And then leading organizations. So from ourselves to others, to an entire organization, we're going to walk through how change management and change leadership with actionable strategies can move us forward. So with that said, before we start, let's put, Phil, could we please put the poll here? We want to kind of start here. It's right here on the screen. What best describes your FOMO you're experiencing related to AI? And please, you can see it in real time as you're all clicking away.
You can tell people are deep in thought before their selections. There are a few options here.
It says the poll is, it's open now. Great, yeah. Great. And there's some fantastic, I saw a question that went through about how can you use equity, and it's on how do you assess or create equity while utilizing AI. It all goes to how you are developing and creating those frameworks, because you can build bias or systemic racism into your agent. So that comes again with the careful cultivation of your prompt and how you're considering all those aspects. For example, some people have used prompts to read through an email and to identify passive-aggressive tones. You can ask, please read through this, identify passive-aggressive tones, identify any bias or systemic racism that may be inside this email. Make those edits, bold those edits, and then tell me what you changed. Therefore, it starts becoming a coach for you, so you understand what the changes are, so you can write better, you can be better in your emails and in your presence.
Very good. Let's take a look at the results here.
Okay, it looks like I'm slightly worried that we might not be keeping up with AI advancements, which is a 51%. Mike, what do you think about that?
I'm not surprised because we don't know what others are doing. I mean, that's what FOMO is all about. Like, you don't know what party you didn't get invited to. We have no clue. So I'm really excited that there's 16% of people are saying I have no fear. I think we're moving. I mean, organizations have their own op tempo, right? The question is this top of mind? Is there executive sponsorship? Is there executive leadership? Is there vision around this? I've worked with several organizations that it's coming from the top down and it's coming from the bottom up. So other organizations, the top says, we don't know what to do. why don't you guys figure it out and tell us what we need to do, as far as their teams and their input. At the end of the day, it's something we all have to face. And so I feel like our competitors are ahead of us, only 6%. And once again, do you have a competitive intelligence function in the business that's benchmarking your competitors' AI initiatives? Maybe, probably not a lot though. So I think this is an interesting spread. It's not unsurprising, but I'm really glad that 16% of people, I would have said maybe 5 to 10%. So I'm excited about the 16%.
Thank you. And it looks like people are having a really fantastic conversation. And Heather Brigette, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. You're right. I think if you're on this call, you're already ahead of the curve at this point. Thank you. So the point of this slide is to talk about how you're changing FOMO to Jolie. So fear of missing out to joy of leaning in and moving towards. So the upskilling and knowledge building, there's 6 parts to upskilling and knowledge building for yourself and for others, from workforce trends, ethics and equity, change management, AI literacy, analytics, and data. So I'm going to unpack that just a little bit more. So for workforce trends is understanding where I saw that in the chat where people were talking about some of those jobs that are going to be coming up, people may not have the skills for. Well, as leaders, as change leaders, is identifying, looking at those workforce trends and identifying what skills are required to help make those transformations. I remember back, I was an industrial engineer when I first began my career. And when we would go into organizations and work with them, there was a commitment that when we would do Lean or Six Sigma, that we would not lose jobs, we would then repurpose that capacity. It's the same thing I think we're going through right now in being purposeful of how we're opening capacity for our organizations. The next is ethics and equity, thinking about what is the governance in your organization. Again, I saw that quite often in the chat about people were talking about what are the ethics of having AI interspersed in your flow of work, and how some organizations are closing down the ability to use that as they try to navigate this. The next part is change management and using having those thinking about that this isn't just software. I know we talked it's software, right? But it's a very sophisticated software, and it is already throughout. I mean, if you use Alexa, or if you use Siri, or even if you're writing and autocorrect you're using, that is AI. It's now just becoming something so prevalent that it's become so democratized that we start to have thinking about how are we going to make that transition from our organizational structure that we have today to, as Mike was talking about, those augmented org structures where you'll have positions, but that actually at the table will be data scientists, data analysts, and even synthetic humans, which are those AI agents. Then thinking about literacy, how do you help people reduce their fear of AI coming into the organization is truth is power. Helping people understand what AI is and how they can utilize AI in their everyday work. Analytics, very strong. That is something that's progressing. I'm noticing that as I'm working and augmenting in different organizations as a staff member, that analytics and data capability, be able to take data and then communicate it back out in a story, is an incredible skill set that I think all of us need to be able to embrace more. And then data itself. Let's think about that. It's go, garbage in, garbage out. One of the first things that Mike and I and our colleagues do when we go in to do an AI assessment for an organization, first we talk about our people, and second we say, what's the quality of your data? Is it reliable? What is the source? How much data is there, data integrity is there? So thinking about, again, workforce trends, ethics and equity, change management, AI literacy, analytics and data. Take one of those as a step and lean into it to move forward. So this slide talks about some surveys that were done recently One is by Wiley in 2023. It was published of 3,000 human resource and L&D professionals, while the other one was 3,500 Dale Carnegie participants, ranging from CEOs all the way to the front line, talking about worldwide, talking about how AI will impact talent careers. So I'm not going to read each one of these bullets. What I'd like to do is to hear what you think about what is on the slide and how is that impacted. Does this resonate with you? If not, what is it that you would like to add? And Pat, I wish that when I was doing my doctorate that AI did statistical analysis was there because we had to do structural equational modeling and everything. Yeah, Soren, yes, or is asking for more instructor-led. Then yeah, I agreed with that. Administrivia, Brenda, I'm all for that. And Heather, one of the things about using it as a subject matter expert and training it to be a subject matter expert is one, training it, but then also having it so that you can cultivate or cull out information from training, from subject matter experts. That's another way that really helps with augmenting teams and also opening the capacity for instructional designers. Often instructional designers have to spend a lot of time gathering all that subject matter expertise. There's a way to be able to optimize the subject matters experts' time as well as the instructional designer. You can spend more time having more meaningful dialogue instead of getting just the little bits and pieces, but then to be able to really parse out that information. So here's an actionable strategy, which is upskilling with prompt engineering. So we did talk a little bit about this, and actually some of you had asked about prompt engineering, about how do we create our agents, how do we utilize AI throughout our organizations. And the idea is that we fear what we don't understand. Employees may be overwhelmed by what prompt engineering is. And if you're using models like ChatGPT 4.0 and not using it in having an informed methodology for prompt engineering, you may not get the appropriate answers. Back in November of 2022, when we started playing with ChatGPT, I would sometimes complain about the fact I had to work so hard to get an answer. And Mike and Nick would coach me on, well, that means that your prompt wasn't accurate. It wasn't giving you enough information or giving the AI large language model enough information or guardrails to give you the information back. So thinking about AI and prompt engineering is something that gives you comfort, gives your team comfort in having those skills. It's having those core competency of prompt engineering, that competitive edge. And I think there was earlier somebody was talking about that you're not going to get replaced by AI. I think it was Chris King. You're going to get replaced by somebody who can utilize AI and leverage it. Thinking about AI collaboration, having that seamless human and AI ability to bring things. So for example, when I do some coaching for people for their growth, taking their resume and the job description that they want, putting that in, I have a series of prompts that does a comparison, also checks for ATS, also checks and writes that rewrites their opening phrase on their resume, writes their elevator pitch, even answers questions, and then also identifies places where this person may need to have to defend their resume or experience. Like, what are some questions that you may be challenged with? All of that is available through very good prompt engineering craft. And then democratization, the fact that anybody and everybody can learn this is fantastic. So think about it again, upskilling with prompt engineering. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I think it went to, Oh, super teams, augmented intelligence teams. I'm going to pop this over to you, Mike, to talk a little bit more about augmented intelligence teams because you say it so well.
Well, we talked about that manufacturer example. That was the first experience as an augmented intelligence team. The teams didn't know what the power was. Now that they know what the power of it is, now they're discovering other things that they can use, either just OpenAI as is, or use a highly customized agent, to guide their conversation. One of the things that was in the chat was around, statistical analysis, and there's a bunch of emerging tools. There's too many, and I don't want to pick just one of them to throw in there. But if you look at AI statistical analysis, the idea is you can just chat with your data. So, okay, we want to improve our customer experience. Cool. Christina, let's you and I, another person, get together and let's have a conversation with our data. We don't know what the data says. We don't have the data science to do it, but let's ask our data. Like, what's the next product that people buy after they buy one product, from our shoemaker, factory? Oh, cool. Oh, well, why aren't they buying this product? We designed this product as like the second. We sell the sneakers, then we sell the flat footwear, then we sell the sandals. We thought that was going to happen. Oh, wait, that's not happening. So the idea is that if we can do some automation and we can do some linkage and we can start to build an augmented intelligence team that will continually provide new tooling for those teams, to start to do super jobs where we do in an hour what might have taken, a month along the way. I mean, I know personally from my product development agent that I work with, I can do something in 16 seconds that would take 16 hours of multiple people working together because we've trained it on all of the product development things that we've ever done. We trained it on our templates. The agent knows everything and it's very eager, to serve us in some meaningful way. But now that we're able to do super jobs, now we have the coupling of individuals working together as a team. And if they're able to continually build their own tooling, and if we have the data infrastructure and they have the knowledge of what we have, then we can really start to build super teams and organizations. It's different in every industry. It's $1.8 million of revenue per employee in the energy industry, and that goes down into manufacturing and banking. It's a wide range. But I think in the future, with augmented enterprises that can perform super jobs and have super teams, you should see the revenue, annual revenue per employee number as the metric that executive leaders are looking at as increasing and having some directionality.
Thank you, Mike. So thinking about that in the three types of employee resistance, we have the technological, the psychosocial, and the organizational. So the technological is that fear of incompetence, of not having that necessary skill set. So we talked about that earlier. Two is the cultural and psychological resistance. That's resistance to do a discomfort for change. So a lot of organizations have gone through those major transitions of their organization. So how are you setting up your culture of your organization? Is it a growth mindset? Is it data driven? How are you doing and setting your values of your organization that set that stage for psychological safety? And then organizational resistance, which we've read that consistently in the chat about how organizations are still trying to find their footing with governance and equity and ethics. So thinking about in leading your teams, there's an actionable strategy in connecting your hearts and your mind is using design thinking. That's actually how Mike and I first met, was talking about design thinking in the organization, is at a conference, is using an empathy map. So an empathy map talks about an individual from their perspective or their role, and then asking what they say, they think, they do, and they feel, and even the pros and cons and the KPIs associated to that change in their organization. It's a great way to level set and gain perspective of your team, to also have them feel like they're being heard. Like, again, thinking about that cultural and psychosocial pushback. An empathy map is an exercise you can do with your team within an hour of having people fill out a very easy canvas, be able to have those conversations, and then identify those gaps that you can close, again, with that change leadership. Now, thinking about organizations, talking about an AI maturity model. So this model helps us to understand from reactive to innovative where we are in that transition. Now, before I turn this back to Mike, because Mike speaks of the AI maturity model in a fantastic manner. I'm going to ask people to be able to take this model and talk through it, but I ask you all, where do you think your organization is? Are you reactive, emerging, operational, optimized, or innovative? Mike?
There's that fantastic mute button. So, based upon, what I'm seeing, on the distribution of the responses, on the poll, every organization starts reactive at the end of the day. Oh, I hear AI a lot on CNBC. Oh, I hear ChatGPT more than I've ever heard in my life. We're going to continue to hear that. And it's not just going to be ChatGPT. There's an LLM war that's out there, and we're going to continually see releases. We're going to see more and more companies, like we're already seeing, integrating AI, into their product roadmap. People like Articulate just released a bunch of AI features. But without a strategy and maybe a little bit of experimentation, it's hard to get things off the ground. It's hard to get traction along the way. And those things come from strategy and governance, where you're starting to think like an emerging organization. Ourselves, we benchmark ourselves between operational and optimized, because we have the strategy, which is AI everywhere at any cost to impact workplace happiness. And it's in production environments, and it's scaling, and we're continually upskilling our teams, from not just thinking about organizational capabilities, but thinking about individual competencies to consistently get alignment. But this is a journey for every organization, and the journey is different because we're all different organizations, with different culture, different talent, and different knowledge along the way. But having some understanding of where you're at and what your timeline looks like to shine the flashlight on the future is critical. 3 to 5 years from now, every organization should be operational in some way. So the question is, how do you get there? You got to deal with change.
Thank you, Mike. I'm just going to go through this very quickly because we're running out of time. Great conversations, but at an organization level, there's 5 steps to the future. Again, understanding your technological understanding, increasing that, aligning your learning strategy to business strategy. That's incredibly important because that helps bring the bottom line of the impact of your learning and development to the business strategy and overall what you are bringing to the table to move your organization forward. Motivate and shift mindsets. Again, as we were talking about, having a better understanding of where people sit. That empathy map that we discussed, you could do it with your team, but you could also do it everyone from the C-suite all the way to the front line on how people are processing, feeling, moving forward, and even thinking about, there's a design thinking exercise on that journey. What before, what's happening right now, and where do you see the future? Pilot and grow. Thinking of like those little exercises you can do. So like we were talking about agents and how to be doing those different things. We did that. We piloted a little bit at a time in these different organizations until we got something that was robust and repeatable. Once it was robust and repeatable, it became an agent. And then scale and sustain. Once it becomes an agent, you're able to share across your entire organization. So a quick and easy, I would say a quick, easy and natural way to start making change, and almost at a grassroots level in an organization. An actual strategy is communities of practice. Xerox, back in the day, started that. There was an anthropologist that was following the copier repair people for Xerox, and watched that in the morning when they all met for breakfast before they would deploy. The senior repair people were sharing with the junior repair people all their tips and tricks, and it became a way of sharing information, knowledge, etc. So you've seen communities of practice throughout organizations. Very active in the intellectual capital movement of the late 90s. So the idea of communities of practice is having that shared domain. So AI and how you're using AI in the organization. That practice, what are the tips and tricks that people are using, just like we were sharing here? And then who's the community? You can have it specific to a particular role, like all project managers, or you can open up to your entire organization. You may be pleasantly surprised that a lot of people participate and provide that support to one another. So, Mike, I'm going to hand it over to you to bring it on home. Thank you, everyone.
Sounds good. So, I mean, we're all inspired, to do something, but there's work, the perspiration along the way. But we have to have some level of aspiration for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. And so, when we think about this from a design thinking perspective, these are sort of the questions you want to answer. When I talked about that manufacturing example earlier, why do you want to use AI? You got to answer these with your team. Why would we want to do it? What will it do for us as an organization? And if we did do those things, what would happen as a result? What is the hopeful outcome, and how will we measure it? But the work comes in like, okay, well, what do we need to consider? Well, we've got IT and security and cyber and government. Like, we have all these things we need to think about. Understanding what those are with your stakeholder group is critical. And there are also known unknowns, like that are critical that you identify as a team. This is really a human level conversation around how technology can really transform the business, and then identifying what some of the next steps are. I threw this in the chat. This is part of the AI readiness offering that ELB has. And so really then the aspiration is like, what are the use cases we want to fulfill? If we just did this one thing, what would the game changer be for our organization? What's the proof of concept that we might build to prove that it works? AI doesn't come at zero expense. There's the cost to compute associated with it too, whether using tokens on ChatGPT, whether using tokens on something else, there is a cost, and there's a cost to implement it. So, is there a clear ROI that's there? You're only going to learn that by building a proof of concept and testing it in the wild. One of the key things for making things awesome is having the right data. Our HR agent, when we're recruiting a new person, we don't even talk to them about benefits. We say, here's the HR agent, ask it anything you want, because it knows everything. Because HR data is pretty static, and even SOPs as well, they can generally be static in an organization. But there's a lot of places where data is fluid. And so if you have a use case or a POC that you want to build, but you don't have your lasso around the data, you're going to have a challenge in building that. Not that it's insurmountable, but the data is what makes it great. Because ChatGPT doesn't know anything about you except what you tell it. So when I was talking about the metadata defined agent persona, the MDAP stuff earlier, you got to put a lot of context in there. So it knows you, it knows your business, it knows your objectives, but putting that in there makes a huge difference for that. Then you need to look at your capabilities. Do you have the capabilities organizationally? Can you borrow the capabilities? Can you rent the capabilities? Do you need outside help to do that? To really figure out what your strategy is, what your governance is, and then based upon your POCs and the pilots that you're running, what are the investments that you need to make now, and in the future. We're already into 2024, and many of the organizations that I know and we're working with didn't really allocate for an AI budget in 2024, but they know they need to do it. So now they're in the process of reallocating budgets to make the necessary investments. But if you answer these questions, you can do a whole lot with a team to start defining the dream, which is the key. You got to start with a team that believes in the dream. In Chris Hively's book, Build the Fort, he talks about the fact that everything we needed to know to be entrepreneurial, we learned when we were young by building a fort. Find a team, find a shared dream, find spare parts, build something, see what works, see what doesn't work. And you got to try stuff, and you're going to break stuff, but you have to break stuff, in order to make stuff along the way. The journey is going to require both enterprise and entrepreneurial thinking, hand in hand to move this along. And I'm super appreciative that so many of you joined us today. And I hope this was helpful for you on your learning journey. And Dr. Barrs, always good jamming with you.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Please know that you can always reach out to us with any further questions. You can tell that we're very passionate about what we do, and we love to share that passion with others. Montressa, so good to see you.
And Dr. Barrs and Mike, thank you so much. I'm going to launch on people's browsers right now a little bit more on what ELB Learning provides in terms of AI services and consulting. I put that link also earlier in chat. You can just close that and come back into the room if you'd like, but do check it out. And we want to thank ELB Learning for making today's event possible. Did you want me to put the poll back up here, Dr. Barrs and Mike?
Yeah, quick, if people would like to, we're willing to fill it out before. Now that you've met with us, now that you've been enlightened, how would you answer the poll now?
Yeah, please go ahead and put your answers in as of now. If you're more comfortable, worried, etc. here. Thanks, everybody. What a great session. Very dynamic chat going and conversation between everybody. We'll definitely have to have you back for part 2 if you'll
Love
come
that.
back. Yeah. So give people a few more seconds here to answer. We're just a little bit over the hour, but don't worry, the recording continues if you have to go. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and let's take a look at the results versus, here, I've got the slide. I got it ready over here. Here's how we started. And now, so.
Wow, I'm excited about B, the increase.
Life is good.
Yeah.
Life is really good. Super great.
Wonderful. And once again, I want to say thank you to everybody for attending today's event, and Dr. Barss and Mike. Well done. A lot to think about, a lot to know. We'll get through it together, right? Don't forget, ELB Learning has more information for you on AI and AI consulting services. Can go ahead and click on the lower left also for more information from them. Let me go ahead and put that link also back here in chat, everybody. And what is your most useful idea or takeaway? Go ahead, for those of you still in the room, please, we'd like to hear from you. You'll see the new pod there over on the right-hand side. What was your most useful idea or takeaway that you learned today? Take a moment and type that out. You'll also see more information on printing out a certificate of participation for today's event in Training Magazine Network. Great, keep those answers coming. What's your most useful idea or takeaway? And Dr. Barss and Mike, if you want to comment on what you're seeing here or have any closing words of wisdom here for us.
Well, we said earlier, in order to do differently, we need to think differently. The key elements facing the future is the first set of buckets that we need to get our teams to be thinking about. And if we're going to be human-centered in our approach, we have to start with the human. We have to start with the empathy map. We got to know what people are thinking, feeling, hearing, saying, seeing and doing. I'm glad that someone took away upskilling, because, if we don't know, we don't know. And right now, there's a lot of unknown unknowns. And by digging into the space and starting to learn about the art of the possible, one glorious thing is we're all in the learning community and we're all willing to help each other. So I love being at learning conferences because everyone's like, hey, let's learn together. Let's share. And there's an open community of knowledge sharing along the way. That's my perspective, Christina.
I totally agree. I love the fact that somebody said it's doable. That's the whole point of doing this type of presentation. And that what Mike and I both believe in problem solutions is not esoteric thought. It's nice to have a thought partner, but the rubber hits the road. And how do we make that change? How are we part of that change? And most of all, how do we bring people along that feel safe, that feel willing and valued for changes like this?
Great, Christina. Thank you, Dr. Barss and Mike, for taking some of the fear out of all of this. A lot going on, and it will ever evolving for sure. So thank you so much for bringing clarity to a lot of complex and valuable tools that are out there now. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of the members for attending here today. Go ahead and keep putting in your most useful idea or takeaways. In fact, I'm going to have to expand this here because it's getting so many comments here. Thanks, everybody. And once again, this is Philip Rodriguez, today's webinar producer, thanking you for attending today's event. And also thank you to ELB Learning. Create better learning experiences with ELB Learning. For more on them, just click on your screen right now. And thank you once again for attending today's Training Magazine Network webinar event, AI on AI change management. Thank you, and change management. Thank you, everybody.